those first 30 minutes, I would like completely like reconfigure how I would approach it, because I know like it's jarring at first, the way they all come at you and the way he constantly throws questions back at you, and you know, just prepare for once you settle in, and then you can just take it from there, because everything's smoother sailings from there. You know, that's really when both of us did better when we were on that show.
Can we just point out how ridiculous it is that it's like 5-on-1 on that show? And like,
right.
I think this is the reason he no longer does, or he claims he doesn't do like interviews online. Like he did one with Sam Cedar. Now he refused to do one with Sam Cedar on the internet anymore, because he wants that 5-on-1. He wants that confrontation. He wants these people on his side, all these people versus one individual in a room. Like, David, it's just the whole setup. Like, did you see what his dad said? If it was the opposite, they'd be freaking out about how unfair it is. Yet this is the setup they have.
David, I sent you in the Twitter the link to the picture of when I walked in and saw Tim Pool playing the guitar. If there's only one clip I want to play that no one's seen, because it's from the second half, I put it in the chat of the Leftist Mafia. It's where I finally, because I was going a lot harder in the second half. I had a Bud Light that was powering me. It was giving me like, you know, I a can of queer juice, and it was giving me superpowers. And yeah, so if there's only one clip to play,
Hey,
play that.
What?
Play that
a can
one
of
clip.
what?
Bud Light.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You said something else.
Oh, I said the Bud Light was queer juice. It was giving me superpowers.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what you said. I was like, what?
Oh, I stand by that.
Wow, so the room looks bigger.
Yeah,
that's the gun against the wall in the corner.
Oh, is that the one he cleaned?
Not the gun. No, not the one he cleaned. The one up against the wall in that corner there. That's the one he told me, hey, you want to pick up that gun? It's a Civil War relic. And I looked at it. It was all dusty and rusty and looked like it could fall apart at the touch. So I was like, yeah, I'll pass. I didn't want to like be held responsible for it breaking. And so I didn't pick it up. And apparently, according to people who've reached out to me after, a few weeks later, he was telling the story of a leftist he had on the show who was too afraid to hold his gun.
So if you go on in the future, when he asks you if you want to pick up his gun, you pick it up and you're like, pow, pow, like horrible trigger discipline, just like fuck with it, throw it up, catch it.
I'll pick up that gun if he signs a contract saying I'm not held responsible, like an NDA, whatever it is, that I'm not held responsible if that shit falls apart in my hand. That shit looked old as shit. Like, I was not gonna touch that thing.
Yeah. So yeah, that was interesting. How would you rate the experience, Lance, on a scale from 1 to 10? Very important.
It's mentally draining and exhausting. It took 12 hours for me to get there, and then it took 2 days for me to get home. And then like obviously having to get like by the end of it, like you can watch the clip, David, that I just sent you in the chat. By the end of this, you can see me basically screaming at them because I was just so sick of all this shit. Because they were talking about drag queens. He was saying that drag queens are groomers. He was talking about the Club Q shooting, and I actually said to his face, "I'm like, shame on you." I was like, "I'll say that to your face."
Yeah, that was a great moment, by the way.
Yeah, and so like wait till the end of, well, I mean, pause it if you want, but for the last like 15 seconds, that's the part that I'm actually pretty proud that I finally got to yell at them for.
Grooming is when you are trying to coerce a child into a sexual relationship with you. That's grooming.
See, that's
the actual definition of it.
Right.
But well, you are giving a definition that you've invented, or that the right has invented, or that you've extrapolated, or you've added to. But that's what grooming is.
So the left actually introduced the political aspect of it, which is why I tried to be careful with you. Because
how do we introduce an aspect to it?
So when the conversation emerged around grooming, the left began mentioning the idea of politics and grooming children to politics, because the question was around
to politics. It's if you were trying to coerce them into a sexual relationship with you.
That's
those are groomers. Those are what groomers are.
I got to make this point.
And
those are the groomers.
And traditionally, by every single standard, it was considered grooming for an adult to tell a child that their parents don't understand them, that adult has a better understanding of that child's sexual identity, and that they should take on specific sexual behaviors and characteristics. That has always been considered grooming.
You know, you're mentioning aspects of a groomer and the things they can do to groom, but the goal of a groomer, and this is what we all have to be on the same page is, because I think we all want to protect kids, right? Ultimately, everyone in this circle
wants to protect kids.
Yes, absolutely. So we have to identify what groomers are. They want to coerce children into having sexual relationships with them. And the second thing I want to add when it comes to groomers, the majority of people who sexually assault children are family members. We should say, like, you should say that loud and proud, it's family members. It's like 76% is family members, and
So
after half
hold
of
on.
that is friends and family.
What do you think about that?
But that's kind of a whataboutism, right?
Jim, I'm never
Because-
going to defend like individual examples that you pull up. If you pull up an example like, hey, here's a drag queen who's like doing a lap dance, like, do you think I'm going to sit here and be like, well, because I'm an NPC, the left says I have to accept this?
I just
Is
asked
that,
you what do
is
you
that
think.
grooming?
I think that's inappropriate to do in front of a child.
What-
This is not what Drag Queen Story Hour is. Drag Queen Story Hour is men in wigs reading stories to kids,
Why?
kids books.
But they're in their fetish costume.
Why does, okay, to you it's a fetish costume.
No,
to,
not
to
to
them
me.
it's
That's
a
why I
performance.
don't wear it.
Okay,
to
to
them it's a fetish costume.
Drag is burlesque.
Okay, let's get ahead of this one. Boys, who are some drag performers I know? Michael Knowles, Steven Crowder, Rudy Giuliani.
And
Do you think there's?
Are they groomers?
but
do you
are
think
they,
there's-
are they,
did I
are
just-
they,
did I
are they
list
going
three
up to
groomers?
children and introducing
Yes! Steven Crowder has segments where he's in public and there are children and he's dressed in drag. What are you talking about?
Amazing.
He could only
good.
laugh. He could only laugh
Amazing.
because he had
Yeah.
nothing else
Exactly.
to say about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was great.
Mhm.
That was great.
Thanks.
Yeah,
good.
good work. That has got to be draining. The beginning was particularly just soul crushing because he was being so disingenuous. We were all yelling at the screen.
Oh, I
So
can
for you to
imagine.
go on hours after that when we were all mentally drained, like it had to have been exponentially worse for you. So I give you credit because that was very difficult and you did good.
Thanks, fam.
Yeah.
Wow.
It takes. I honestly think like that is the way to go about it. Just go on that. If I was to go on that show again, those first 30 minutes, I would like completely like reconfigure how I would approach it because I know like it's jarring at first the way they all come at you and the way he constantly throws questions back at you, and you know. Just prepare for once you settle in, and then you can just take it from there because everything's smoother sailings from there. You know that's really when both of us did better when we were on that show.
Can we
yeah,
just point out how
same with you.
ridiculous it is that it's like 5-on-1 on that show? And like,
Right.
I think this is the reason he no longer does, or he claims he doesn't do like interviews online. Like he did one with Sam Cedar. Now he refused to do one with Sam Cedar on the internet anymore because he wants that 5-on-1. He wants that confrontation. He wants these people on his side, all these people versus one individual in a room. Like
David,
it's just
did
the
you-
whole setup. Like,
Did you see what his dad said?
If it was the opposite, they'd be freaking out about how unfair it is. Yet this is the setup they have.
Did you see
Yeah.
what his
You
dad
would-
said? What Tim Pool's dad said? He made a video.
No,
on
what'd
me.
he say?
He's
I
like,
saw that, yeah.
yeah, he was like, back in my day, we used to have a fair fight, 1v1. I don't know what this is, this 3v1 crap, but you guys got to meet mano kind of shit. I was like, oh, this is like, he just seems like, an old fashioned guy, but it's pretty funny to see.
Can I tell you something pretty crazy? Like I Tim Pool's style is I don't know if he's seen this, and this is what he deploys. But randomly, one good thing about the new Twitter is I get the worst people in my mentions. And one of these, not my mentions, my For You algorithm, and one of these things was a like shitty like growth and personal growth like Twitter user. But the tweet that showed up in my feed was how to win an argument without having solid reasoning and proof. And it's a way to like, I'm being serious. This is crazy. Go listen to these tips and tell me Tim Pool does not deploy each and every one of them. Are you ready? Stage 1, trigger your interlocutor. If you're short on logical arguments, the safest way to still be right is by making the person in front of you sound wrong. In order to do that, you have to drag the conversation towards emotions and completely disregard any sort of logic. A few ways to do this is by responding to logical arguments by suggesting that your interlocutor lacks empathy by being too rational, emotional appeal. He did that to you. Or even directly
say that.
criticizing the person in front instead of discussing their ideas. Stage 2. Forcing the monologue through question bombing. He does that all the time. While the tone of the conversation is getting more and more aggressive and emotional, you start framing the conversation by bombing your interlocutor with questions. The goal here is not to get an answer from them, but rather the opposite. What you're really doing is getting on their nerves. This should be done in such a way that you ask a question every time they start answering the previous one. Very annoying, but very effective. Stage 3. letting your interlocutor speak. Here you want them to talk as long as possible. You have already been preparing them for this moment by disturbing them all along. They should feel relief as you completely shut up and start looking at them in the eye with interest and insistence. Intense eye contact to convey that you're not only listening, but doing so willingly and with good faith. But your disturbing act is not done yet. As they start speaking, you should have a very expressive face and react with negative facial expressions to the point the person is making. Not with anger, but rather with disdain. The idea is to make them angrier and angrier as they try to convey their message while destabilizing their rationale. Stage 4, destroy the monologue. Yes, good old ad hominem. You're not going to address any of the points they made. Instead, you're going to attack the flaws of their rationale and the person. It goes on and on. That's just some of the tips. It's exactly what he does in every single conversation you had with him, I had with him. It's that to a T.
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem like it would be a lot to think about, or you just think that's what he eventually like? Do you think he's intentionally using those kind of strategies, or they're just like they're identifying those kind of strategies?
I don't like. Do I think he saw this guy's thing? No.
No. I'm just saying like that also seems like a lot of things to think about while you're doing it. Like
I think it's a skill that he
if you're an
developed.
honest person, but if you're a dishonest person just there for just trying to get an emotional reaction, I think it's almost the default for some of these people is just to act on a purely emotional level and not actually discuss anything rationally, because they're not there for a rational conversation. They're there just to evoke some kind of emotion out of people. So I think for him, it comes naturally because certain people just don't. He doesn't care about the issues. He doesn't actually care about the truth. It's just about whatever he has to argue, and he'll argue that side.
Yeah, they're inherently bad faith. And I think that as they do more of these debates with the left-wingers, they get better at kind of deflecting and obfuscating with time. And you could tell that like Tim Pool, he's been doing a lot of obfuscation and deflection for years. So he was very savvy in the way that he approached some of these questions. He knew how to frame it in a misleading way that tried to back you into a corner. He is deeply bad faith, and I don't even know like what his personal political beliefs are. I don't know if he believes anything that he says, but it's just that environment is almost impossible to have a good faith conversation because he's not interested in that.
Do you guys think you'd go?
I would not know.
No.
I'd do it again.
I think you're better equipped. I think
you were
you're
too
someone
lads.
who's good at these kind of conversations. It's for me. It's just like I'm not that kind of person. I can't engage in the mud. I'm just not. I don't excel in an environment like that. It's too confrontational.
Same. I'm not very quick on my toes like you all are. For me personally, like I like to really take time and think about ways to approach an argument. It's just not for me. Like I think the most effective way that I can break down these arguments is like watching their video, pause it, because I would get too frustrated if they're in the moment just throwing a bunch of shit at me, because I like to approach things very like I can't just formulate something quickly. So yeah, that would drive me absolutely nuts. Like I've had these conversations like with family members, and of course I BTFO them because I'm much more politically savvy than them, but it's still just draining and exhausting because it just, I don't know. I just would not, it would be terrible. I hate it. I would get too mad.
I mean, I definitely do it. But I don't like to. I mean, I'm a lawyer. I'm a defense attorney. So
You're
I was
good
like,
at-
you could probably just Roy because of that.
yeah, no, yeah. I'm great. Like people love when I'm in debate formats with right wingers and stuff. It always goes viral.
On
They
the
love
Hill,
it.
that's how it usually goes down after the segment, right? Because after you do that whole like that list where you do like the breakdown or whatever, then you start like going back and forth, right?
Yeah, it happens, or I don't even be trying to debate with nobody, but yes, it's fine because I think as long as you remember it's a performance. Like I think that's the thing. That's all I think there is to it, is to remember it's a performance. Like if you watch me, like when I was watching you do this, I was screaming, but you don't get that from me when I'm in the debates because I'm performing. It's not like I'm an actress. So yeah, I can do it, but I don't care to. I'm not traveling to no white man's plantation to be jumped by a bunch of that was crazy. That don't make no fucking sense. Like, no fucking way. Like, no way. Look at it. It looks like a fucking dungeon, a fucking council full of idiots. No way. No fucking way. That's crazy.
Yeah, I would say I would be open to doing a 5 or 6-on-1 against like Raves, Dubin, or Temple on this show because if they want it to be unfair.
Is there even an example of any of these people showing up to a more left wing show or progressive show in a format like that where it's like 3 versus 1?
No, they're not
Like,
doing that. They're dumb.
Of course they're not doing
Yeah.
that.
That's true. I
They're just
never thought about
talking in
that.
circles.
Yeah. My stint as a debate pro ended without a single debate because back like a couple of years ago, the Drunken Peasants put together a debate between me and I don't remember his name. It was a long-haired
Styx or something.
Yeah, it was Sticks something. It was the long ass name.
Wait, Sticks and Hammer like 666?
Yeah. Okay.
That's a Holocaust denier.
Yeah, so I spent like a month and a half doing research and prep for that debate. They put together this amazing promo, and the day before he bows out, and then we try to schedule again, he bows out, and then a third time he bows out. I'm like, motherfucker, like I don't know what it is. Like I'm not very intimidating. I've never done a debate before. Like I just do my own YouTube videos. But he bowed out like 3 times, and I'm like, okay, this is too exhausting. I'm done. That's it.
Wait, so you mean it? So hold on. So the debate pro culture is like where they're actively, consciously going into it as a debate. Like we're going to have a debate. Like I'm scheduling the debate with you. That's the concept. That's our extrapolation. You know what's interesting? I've been on a lot of videos like on YouTube where like on shows and stuff and it gets labeled debate after. And it's always like, I'm like, huh, like that's how you felt? Like I didn't
thought it was a friendly conversation.
I have no, it always feels like that. I think that's like why, like, especially like on the Hill, it always looks like you look like Robbie and MB hype, but I'm always like lost because I don't actually give a fuck what anybody like I don't need you to agree with me. I don't care. I'm not here to convince you, and I don't give a fuck what you think. So I'm always like lost when it's like, ooh, you're really impassioned on this silly shit you are saying.
Well, and the thing about these debates, though, is that there's no winner or loser. The audience who supports you thinks you won. The audience who supports them thinks that they won. I mean, like, you could try to be objective here and there, but there's a bias. We all have biases. Like, immediately, like, Lance could have went there and shit the bed, and I still would have, like, found all the little nuggets of, like, amazingness from it. Because, like, you're rooting for these people because when you see them up against, like, this bad faith actor who doesn't care about anything but scoring points, not trying to change hearts and minds, just wants clicks. It's hard not to be biased there. So I'm biased, they're biased. The winner is whoever you already supported. Like, I think that to the extent that debates change minds, it's probably minimal. But maybe it's large enough. Like, we can't quantify this shit, right? But it's probably large enough to be worthwhile.
It's entertainment.
It's just not my thing.
It's entertainment.
Right. It's entertainment for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think debate should be approached with like the other, like the opponent really in mind. I think you should look at debates kind of as a presentation and addressing the arguments with sense, like not get lost into it. Like in court, right? Like as a lawyer, you don't go back and forth running on. Like that's not how things are. You present an argument, other side presents an argument, sense is made, whatever. There's not too much running on. Like if I file a motion and the prosecutor files a reply, most of the times I'm not going to file another reply unless he brought up something that I didn't anticipate, because you anticipate what the other argument is. It's not like rocket science. You know what the different sides have to say on it. You present your argument with what it is and the disagreements built in, and they present theirs and you go about your business. I think it's a mistake to, do all the and running all their little points. Like, who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? Concede and dismiss and move on. That's why I think, like, if you see me on Rising or you see me on debate shows, I'm very different personality than I present on here or something like that, because I'm being different. I'm actively like, I'm not here to run on
fun
with this person. I know I'm like, I let them talk. Like, honestly, it might be the most viral bits, but I talk least of the time because I let them say all the craziness, and then I'm like, Right. Back to logic, because that's fucking stupid. Here's back to the point, whatever, and conclusion. And they always feel like they won until Twitter says they didn't. You know what I mean? But I don't care, because I'm not in it to argue with them. I'm just in it to make sure I got the perspective out, that point of view that I can share with a larger audience. I'm not there to argue with that person. Who gives a fuck about them?
Yeah. I mean, and even if like it appears that you lost overwhelmingly and most people think that you lost, confidence goes a long way. So if you just brush that shit aside, then you won't be hurt by it. So like, again, like this is all theatrical. I think that if you want to see like a debate, I think the most intellectually stimulating types of debate, not to sound like I like the smell of my own farts, are like these email exchanges that Noam Chomsky did. I mean, I acknowledge the recent kerfuffle of Noam Chomsky. We'll call it
the unpleasantness. Yes, the unpleasantness.
Yeah, so I lost a lot of respect for him, but like he did these emails, like with Sam Harris and stuff like that, and it was like long, drawn out, really thoughtful responses from both of them, even though Sam Harris is a dumb fuck. But I thought that was much more stimulating, because like you can really develop understanding there. Whereas like in a debate, it's this point was scored, that point was scored. And that's not to say that it's not useful. I think that there is value in it, especially considering that like younger people, as they're getting involved in politics, they like the blood fight or the blood sport. So that might draw them in, which I think is good. But at the end of the day, like it is entertainment, and you just got to keep that in mind when you're watching them. It's not for me. I'm too much of one of these people that just gets flustered really easily. And I
like
think
the left-handed clip that it wasn't me, someone took it and then edited it into a TikTok video. It ended up like charting on TikTok. It had like, I think it's almost past 2 million views now, and that was just like a fucking teeny amount of time. And like the fact that went so viral, that was when Tim eventually started subtweeting me. That's what he was like, I don't care what any of you say, I'll never believe the fact that it's like it's somehow not gay to suck a trans woman's penis or something like that. But like,
wait, was that in the after show?
That was in the after show. Yeah, they were talking about, so Mike, I got them to admit that all the shit around groomers, all the stuff about grooming, Drag Queen Story Hour being the grooming hour, all of that, it was actually about the fact that you are worried about gender ideology indoctrinating kids. I said, you're worried about kids becoming queer, and they admitted it. They like, one of them was like, yes, and then Tim Pool was like, because it's sexual, and I was like, no, it's not fucking sexual. It's not inherently sexual. It can be, but it doesn't need to be, right? That eventually led to me being like, could I convince any of you to be gay? If I showed you the best gay porn in the world, you're all straight, right? So if I showed you the greatest gay porn of all time, the juiciest, the finest, like the sexiest of boys, like all of a sudden, would you suddenly be like, oh shit, yeah, I've been transformed? And then that's when Moonlord was like, well, I don't know. He was like, I was watching porn once, and then this like trans porn popped up, and I started thinking to myself that like if I had to see that all the time, maybe I'd start thinking about it, right? And that's where the whole like, I was like, well, if you're attracted to trans women, don't worry, you're not gay. And then Tim was like, yes, you are. And they never backed down off that. All of them kept saying, if you're attracted to trans women, you're gay. And one of them, they brought up Blair White too. I was like, you think it's gay to be attracted to Blair White as a straight heterosexual man? I was like, I can't speak for the entirety of the homosexual community or something, but like I assume a lot of homosexual homosexual men are not attracted to Blair White. I would assume that, right? Blair White is a woman.
Yeah, it's just so bizarre. I'm glad that you brought that point up to them, because it's funny. It's like, for me, my entire life since I was a kid, I was blasted with like heterosexuality. You see almost nothing but straight sex scenes. I don't think I've ever been tempted once to try heterosexuality. I'm a 6 on the Kinsey scale, never been bi-curious at all. So they think that it works the other way around, though, where it's like, okay, wouldn't there be like so much more, like no gay people, just because of how much we see heterosexuality and cis people? Like it's right? Weird logic. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I don't think that they think about these things.
Yeah, I can show you the clip if you want. But we should move on. We should probably move on from Tim Pool. I saw people in the chats being like, "Are they going to talk about the news?" Because there's probably
Tim Pool fatigue.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I don't know if you guys heard, but the next 5 episodes of Leftist Mafia are all Tim Pool. We got 3 more in the works. Are we having a guest on this episode? Because I was going to tweet.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, totally. So shout out to Jessie Gender. If you don't already know, check out youtube.com/Jessie Gender. She's incredible. She does tons of videos on a range of topics, all the way from debunking Matt Walsh's "What Is a Woman," probably the best video series debunking every single thing in "What Is a Woman." She put that together. Also, incredible videos on Star Trek, nerd culture, all that kind of stuff. She's awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I quote tweeted her this morning and had no idea that she's gonna be on the show today. Like, it was just completely random.
Oh, nice.
It's quite a coincidence. But okay, what else happened this week? What news happened this week? Anything you guys want to talk about?
I mean, lots of legal L's in the right-wing world, with Donald Trump being found liable for sexual abuse and defamation of E. Jean Carroll. On top of that,
do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback, because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K, Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arnie, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojak, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Inkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.